This is Maryland Today, a public affairs presentation of this iHeart radio station.
It's no secret that when the recession took place a few years back, everybody's purchasing habits changed, especially when it came to purchasing homes. Good morning and welcome to Maryland Today. My name is Jeff St. Pierre. Joining me this morning to talk more about how home ownership trends have been changing is Nick Beser. He's GuideWell Financials Director of Housing and Community Development. Nick, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you so much, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Nick, after the housing crisis, a lot less young adults and low and mid-income consumers became homeowners than they were before, but this trend seems to be changing. Why is this?
So, Jeff, I think you're exactly right. What we're seeing in the marketplace today is more first-time home buyers are really making the move to own. Many of these young adults, they're getting married, they're starting families, and quite frankly, they're starting to rebel against some of the higher cost of rent, especially in a city like Baltimore. The market has really begun to change. It's adjusting, and really we're starting to see the marketplace meet the needs of more and more of these young families, young, hardworking adults.
That's good news for myself right here, I think, to keep my eyes on this. What market trends do young working families need to take a hold of and take advantage of to prepare for this home ownership?
Yeah, so when we talk about home ownership, credit score is really, it's going to be the essence of everything that happens. The credit score is extremely important. Sure. It's going to dictate the mortgage payment, the interest rate, and all of that. It's important to know as well that affordable home loan products are out there. The marketplace, as I mentioned, is definitely changing. We're seeing more and more product availability every day. And then lastly, I'd say knowledge is power. It's very, very important to understand what you're getting into, and the home ownership process can be a little bit confusing at times.
I'd like to take a look at each of these points in a little more detail here. So why don't we start with your first point? Why is a person's credit score so important if they hope to buy a home?
Credit score is really going to dictate the interest rate. Higher the credit score is going to give you the lower interest rate, and then the lower interest rate, obviously, the lower the payment. So it's really going to affect the affordability for the family. If you think about affordability, it really is going to ultimately dictate where that family decides to live, and even what type of house they may purchase. So, for instance, some working families, they want to have a single family. Maybe they have, a small family with children. The lower the credit score, the higher the interest rate might affect their ability to buy that single family. They may have to choose a townhouse. Also, that affordability is going to help determine which neighborhood. And then if we think again about the working family, school district is extremely important. We want to make sure that credit score is as high as possible, offering the lowest possible rate, and it's going to create more affordability for that family.
I know there are several different types of credit scores out there. What's the most important one for people to keep an eye on for this?
For mortgage financing, really a borrower is going to look at their FICO score.
Okay.
FICO score is going to be most important.
So what can first-time home buyers do to make sure their FICO score is working for them?
So it's going to be very important for a homeowner, someone who's interested in purchasing a home, to take a look and pull their credit score prior to the process. There's 3 credit bureaus out there: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Every homeowner is also allowed to pull one free credit report per year through annualcreditreport.com. Take a look, understand what your score is, take a look for any inaccuracies, really understand what that picture looks like before you start to move forward in the home ownership process.
And forgive my ignorance on this, but I believe now when I'm looking at my Discover card, when I go to make a payment, it does give me a look at my credit score. Is that something that's a good gauge of what I'm looking at?
It's not going to be the end all.
Sure.
It does give you somewhat of an understanding on where you stand, but that's going to be one of probably many credit scores. Like I said, there's 3 bureaus. The credit card companies are using probably one of those bureaus to give you that score. So it's a good idea, but I would still recommend any potential home buyer to take a look, use annualcreditreport.com, or really work with any housing professional. Housing counseling agencies can really help out here as well.
Great. And what type of credit score do you need to be approved for a mortgage with good rates?
Yeah, so this is really changing. I mentioned earlier the mortgage marketplace is changing. Ultimately, to get the best product, the best interest rate, you're going to look for something around the 720 mark. I would tell you that the good news for consumers who don't have that 720 or a score in the 700s, small changes over time can really help that credit score improve. Making payments on time, obviously the most important, and understanding, your debt ratio. So credit card balance maybe $1,000 max. Try to keep that minimum below the 500 mark and that threshold under 50% of the max allowance, and it's going to really help you see score go up over time.
And you and the folks at GuideWell Financial have amazing resources that you can offer to people who are interested in learning more about this or just more details in general.
Most definitely. So we have GuideWell, and thanks for mentioning that, counselors who can really help with credit counseling. We have a debt management program, so some folks that may be a little bit overextended, there's some opportunities to work with our counselors on a debt management plan to get that taken care of. Also, our housing counselors are going to be able to take a look at the credit, the budget, the savings, and make sure that your path to home ownership, that you're as ready as you can possibly be.
And what's the best way to contact GuideWell Financial?
Sure thing. So for an appointment, you can reach us at GuideWell at 1-800-642-2227, or you can always check us out via email at info@guidewell. That's GuideWellFS.org. Also, you can take a look at our website, which is GuideWellFS.org.
So the average monthly mortgage payment tends to be less than the average rent payment in many major cities. But many young adults and working families, they still can't afford to buy. I know I fall into this category here, so I know my personal reason, but why don't you tell us why this is common with a lot of people?
Yeah, so Jeff, I really think of this question as kind of a myth buster of sorts, and it's professionals like myself and others that really need to do a better job of busting these myths. The average consumer, I think, still believes that 20% down is necessary to obtain mortgage financing, and quite frankly, that is a myth. There's plenty of mortgage product. Yeah, there's plenty of mortgage product out there in the marketplace today that goes down as low as 3%. In addition to that, I would really say that a lot of folks out there may be burdened with student loan debt. We're talking about young families, young working families, a lot of which just graduated from college carrying a high student loan debt. It's not always going to be a barrier as some might think. There's some products out there. There's some opportunities to get around some of that to make mortgage financing a little bit more affordable. And in addition to that, Jeff, a lot of folks think that they don't have enough money for the down payment. We'll hopefully be able to share with you a couple of opportunities and options for these consumers. We don't want that to be a hindrance because there are dollars out there. Local jurisdictions have down payment assistance programs. The state of Maryland has quite a few programs as well to help with down payment.
And what are lenders doing to try to change this trend here?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the mortgage marketplace is really starting to change. There's a lot more opportunity, I guess, out there for a consumer who doesn't have, again, the 20% down. FHA, for instance, has a 3.5% down program. They'll take a lower credit score, so we talked about a 720. Many FHA loans can go down to the low 600s. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, both are offering a product right now that is 3% down. And then a lot of the major lenders as well. I know Wells Fargo has a product called Your First Mortgage that is a 97% financing. Bank of America has one as well. So there's a lot of unique new loan programs out there that have kind of been created to meet the needs of a lot of this community that we're talking about today, Jeff.
So, Nick, what advice do you have for home buyers who haven't saved a big down payment?
Yeah, so I said earlier, knowledge is power and knowledge is key. I think researching options, having some conversations early on, understanding what's out there. There is, as I mentioned, state and local incentive programs to reduce down payment, sometimes even reduce interest rates. And there's a lot of interesting product available that lenders are offering, some of the major banks are offering that can get you in the door with 3% down.
Well, you've mentioned some state assistance there, and I've heard about a program called You've Earned It. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, definitely. So the Maryland Mortgage Program, and this one specifically entitled You've Earned It, is a program set up for Maryland residents who have borrowed more than $25,000 in student loan debt and want to purchase a home in one of the state's sustainable communities. So it's a product that actually offers a 0.25% discount on a fixed rate. It's going to be a 30-year conventional mortgage, fixed rate, and it also offers $5,000 in down payment assistance. It's going to be a 0% deferred loan. So any listener out there that wants more information about this product, I would recommend going to the Maryland State Government website and Google You've Earned It. Again, You've Earned It is the name of that special program that helps with some borrowers who may have quite a bit of student loan debt.
That's great. Earlier, Nick, you said that state and local programs and lenders who offer down payment assistance or other incentives, they generally require buyers to complete homeownership education and some type of counseling there. Why do they have this requirement for them?
Yeah, so if we think about 97% financing, we use the term, and you hear the term skin in the game a lot in the mortgage industry. And, 3% is not really a whole lot of skin in the game. So if you think about that to a lender, it creates a higher risk profile.
Sure.
So we want to be able to give opportunities for more Americans to own homes, but at the same time, we need to understand what that risk level is. A way to offset that risk for many major lenders is homeownership education. The homeownership education really allows for a consumer who's interested in purchasing to know more about the process, to understand what it takes to sustain homeownership, which I think is key. So this education is really a way that lowers the risk for the lenders, allows the lenders to open up the credit box, if you will, and allow more homeowners into, and down their own path to homeownership.
So how does GuideWell Financials home ownership program work?
Yeah, so Jeff, I'll tell you, there's a couple of ways home ownership programs at GuideWell can really help consumers. First and foremost, I'd like to mention a home ownership workshop that we offer. There's actually going to be one coming up on July the 29th. We have an office location at Connection Point Church is in Edmondson Village neighborhood in West Baltimore, but the workshop will be held at Connection Point Church on the 29th from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 p.m. This is one of the opportunities, and this is an education workshop. It's going to give a consumer a very good overview of the home ownership process. We also are going to have at the workshop a guest realtor, a guest mortgage lender, and a guest title representative to also give some information about their particular processes within the home ownership process, if you will. So that's one. Secondly, our counselors are really skilled to work with homeowners who need a little bit more. So there's going to be a one-on-one session where the counselor can focus on that individual's credit score, their budget, their savings, all of the things obviously that we've been talking about that go into home ownership. Some of those consumers will be ready to make the move to work with a mortgage lender and obtain the financing. Some of them, however, are going to need a little bit more assistance, Jeff, and I think it's important to note that our counselors at GuideWell are there for you along your individualized path to home ownership. So if there's some work that needs to be done, we're going to try to get you down that path.
Well, Nick, today we've covered a lot of information. That's some great stuff for people who may be future homeowners here. But before we go, do you have any final advice for people?
I do, Jeff. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Education is key. What we're trying to build here at GuideWell is sustainable home ownership. I would say really, if something doesn't make sense or if you have questions, please ask. It's a very complicated process. It's a major investment, probably one of the largest investments one will make in their life. We want to make sure that our consumers are ready to make that trip. Education, you can never have enough of it, and at GuideWell, we're here to help you down that path. We really want you to take advantage of our offerings, all of which right now are free counseling sessions. But, the more information one can have about home ownership, the more they can be prepared, the better off they're going to be.
And how can people contact GuideWell if they want to take advantage of this?
Sure thing. So one more time, you can always visit us on the web at www.guidewellfs.org, or you can call us at 1-800-642-2227.
Nick Beser, GuideWell Financials Director of Housing and Community Development. Thank you so much for coming by. I appreciate all the information today.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
This has been Maryland Today, a public affairs presentation of iHeartMedia Baltimore and this iHeart radio station.